What if the greatest love story in Outlander didn't end on screen, but detonated behind the scenes the moment Sam Heughan walked away? When Richard Rankin finally broke his silence about Sam Heughan's legacy in Outlander, it didn't arrive as a sentimental goodbye or a safe, backstage anecdote. It landed like a fracture in glass, sudden, jagged, and impossible to ignore. Because beneath the kilts, the epic romance, and the carefully curated smiles, there exists a truth fans were never meant to hear. Sam Heughan didn't simply exit a role. He left behind a void so vast it altered the shape of the entire series, the cast, the tone, and the emotional equilibrium of everyone who remained standing in its wake. For years, Outlander sold audiences a fantasy of timeless love and unbreakable bonds, both on screen and off. Interviews reinforced a narrative of harmony, gratitude, and creative unity. But tabloids thrive where official stories develop hairline cracks. And Rankin's words, measured, restrained, yet unmistakably loaded, hint at something far more volatile. Because when someone like Sam Heughan leaves a cultural phenomenon, the real question isn't what he gave. It's what he took with him. Beneath the surface of Rankin's reflections lies a quiet implication. Heughan wasn't merely the leading man. He was the emotional currency of Outlander, the standard by which intensity was measured. The presence that silently dictated how raw a scene needed to be, how deep an emotion had to cut, and how much commitment was ever truly enough. And when that presence vanishes, it doesn't simply create space, it exposes fault lines. Performances are suddenly examined more harshly. Storylines feel thinner, fans grow restless, searching for a spark that once appeared effortless. This is where the real drama ignites. Rankin suggests that Sam Heughan's legacy isn't universally comforting. It's heavy, it's intimidating, and for those who stayed, it became something they were forced to measure themselves against every single day. Imagine stepping onto a set knowing the audience isn't just watching you, they're comparing you to a ghost. A ghost that set the bar so high it borders on unreachable. That isn't nostalgia, that's pressure. Tabloid culture craves heroes and villains, but this story refuses to cooperate. Heughan isn't portrayed as a tyrant, nor Rankin as a dissenter. The tension lives in the aftermath. In the uncomfortable truth that sometimes the most beloved figures leave behind more disruption than comfort. The show didn't just lose a star. It lost its center of gravity. And when gravity disappears, it doesn't fade politely, it drags everything else out of alignment. As Rankin's words ripple outward, fans are left questioning what they thought they understood. Was Outlander always balanced on one man's shoulders? Did Sam Heughan's intensity elevate everyone, or quietly overwhelm them? And most dangerously of all, can a series survive when its own legacy becomes a burden instead of a blessing? This isn't a gentle reflection on a career well spent. It's the opening of a reckoning. And Richard Rankin's voice, calm on the surface, charged underneath, cracks open a door fans were never meant to walk through. The silence after Outlander doesn't sound like peace. It sounds like something heavy being dragged across the floor. Like a truth people are afraid to say out loud. When Rankin finally spoke about Sam Heughan's legacy, it wasn't polished. It wasn't glossy, and it certainly wasn't safe. It was the kind of honesty that forces fans to sit up straighter, realizing the story they thought they knew was only half of what was really happening. For years, viewers were fed a simple narrative: Outlander was a triumph. The cast was close. The chemistry was magic. Sam Heughan's Jamie Fraser would live forever in television history. End of story. Except that's never how it truly works behind the scenes. Shows like this don't simply end. They leave echoes. They leave scars. They leave people standing in the aftermath, trying to understand what they've just survived. And according to Rankin, Sam Heughan didn't only leave behind a character. He left behind a standard, a shadow, a pressure no one could escape. When Rankin speaks about Heughan, there's a pause that says more than any carefully chosen compliment ever could. It's the pause of someone weighing truth, not fear. Sam Heughan wasn't just the face of Outlander. He was its emotional engine. Its gravitational core. Scripts bent toward Jamie Fraser. Storylines were judged by how they reflected off him. Even performances, consciously or not, were calibrated against what Heughan brought to the screen. And this is where legacy becomes complicated. Because legacy is never neutral. It can inspire. It can elevate. But it can also suffocate. Rankin makes it clear that joining Outlander wasn't like stepping into an ordinary series mid-run. It was like entering a cathedral already consecrated to one man. Fans weren't simply watching, they were guarding something sacred. Every new character, every emotional turn, was weighed against Jamie Fraser's myth. And Sam Heughan understood that weight. Worse, he carried it. According to Rankin, what audiences never see is how much responsibility Heughan absorbed so others didn't have to. Being the lead of a show with a fan base that intense isn't about memorizing lines or wearing the costume well. It's about absorbing expectations that would crush most people. Heughan became the lightning rod. If something failed, it landed on him. If the fandom erupted, it hit his shoulders first. Over time, that kind of pressure reshapes a person, not explosively, but quietly, through countless small adjustments. Rankin hints that Heughan's legacy is inseparable from the emotional discipline he brought to the set. He didn't demand reverence. He demanded focus. He demanded truth. If a scene rang hollow, he pushed. If an emotional beat felt dishonest, he refused to let it pass. That intensity raised the show's ceiling, but it also eliminated any chance of coasting. For actors like Rankin, it meant either rising to the challenge or being exposed. Not everyone thrives under that shadow. Rankin doesn't frame this as resentment, but he doesn't romanticize it either. When Jamie Fraser exits the frame, he doesn't just take applause with him. He takes oxygen. The space left behind is enormous, and filling it isn't about replacement, it's about learning how to breathe without him. What makes Rankin's reflections resonate is that they aren't rooted in bitterness. They're shaped by respect sharpened by reality. He describes Heughan as someone who understood Outlander was bigger than any single person, yet carried it as though it were entirely his responsibility. That contradiction defined his tenure. He was both star and shield, fantasy and firewall, and when he finally stepped away, what followed wasn't relief, it was reckoning. According to Rankin, Sam Heughan's true legacy isn't just romance or heroism or cultural impact. It's the work ethic that permanently rewired the show. Once you witness that level of commitment, you can't unsee it. You can't lower the bar again. Every scene afterward is haunted by the same question: is this honest enough? Is this earned? That question didn't leave with Heughan. It lingered. It still does. Rankin also touches on the uncomfortable truth about fandom. Heughan didn't just define Outlander, he defined what fans believed the show was. For many, Jamie Fraser wasn't a character. He was the emotional compass, the moral anchor, the fantasy itself. That devotion fuels success, but it also traps everyone else inside a comparison they can never win. Rankin admits stepping into scenes knowing they'd be dissected through Heughan's legacy was intimidating, not because of self-doubt, but because the audience was no longer neutral. They were protective, demanding, unforgiving. What's striking is how Rankin frames Heughan not as a dominating force, but as a standard-bearer. He never demanded the center. He became it through seriousness, through commitment, through treating every moment like it mattered. That seriousness became part of the show's DNA. You hear it when Rankin describes scenes that left him emotionally drained, not because they were dramatic, but because they had to be real. And then there's the truth no one likes to admit: legacies don't just elevate stories. Sometimes, they end them. Rankin implies that Outlander could never truly be the same because it was never meant to be. Some stories are built around a singular gravity. Remove it, and the universe rearranges itself, not worse, not better, just different. Fans don't always accept different. They want continuity of feeling, not just plot. And that's where disappointment seeps in. Rankin doesn't blame Heughan. If anything, he suggests the opposite. Sam Heughan gave Outlander everything he had, fully aware that leaving would make things harder for everyone else. That's the paradox of devotion. The more you give, the more you take with you when you go. His legacy is heavy because it's honest. Because it was never designed to be sustainable without him. Because it was real. Ultimately, Rankin isn't rewriting history. He's pulling back the curtain just enough to show that magic always comes at a cost. The sweeping romance, the devotion, the unforgettable presence of Jamie Fraser were built moment by someone willing to carry an impossible weight. And when that person steps away, the silence isn't empty. It's charged. Richard Rankin's reflection feels less like a tribute and more like a confession, a quiet acknowledgement that working alongside Sam Heughan permanently altered how everyone involved understands their craft. Once you've witnessed that level of commitment, acting is no longer just a job. You can't hide behind comfort. You can't fake depth. Sam Heughan didn't just leave Outlander. He left behind a challenge: be braver, go deeper, do better. And according to Richard Rankin, that challenge is the most dramatic, unsettling, and enduring legacy of all.